Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me wherever you are joining me. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. And if you're joining me on the YouTube channel, make sure that you like, make sure that you subscribe. We appreciate all the support as always. Shout out to everybody on Facebook. Shout out to everybody on Twitter and every other place that this is posted. Make sure that you follow again the podcast on Spotify and wherever podcasts are found. Y'all know what the vibes is. Go out, CWN Sports. Check out the new Gene Therapy podcast and column that is out right now. Talk about the USFL and the leagues like that, and if they want to be successful, the fact that they have to adapt or die. Trying to be like the NFL or trying to be a facsimile of the NFL will not help them to succeed in the future. It's only going to make people realize that they are not the NFL. If they want to blaze their own trail, if they want to have their own path, then they need to go their own way. And so I discussed some things with my man Emery Hunt from Football Game Plan, and also write a few words. So check it out. There was a lot of uproar yesterday, a lot of hoopla, lots of hoopla. And once again, Tom Brady at the center of the hoopla. And why was Tom Brady at the center of the hoopla, you might ask? Because Tom Brady signed a massive deal. Not as a football player, right? Not as a football player, but as an analyst. Tom Brady signs a 10-year, $375 million deal with Fox Sports in order to be their lead analyst, the lead NFL analyst at Fox Sports after he retires. So whenever he decides that it's time for him to shut it down, for the next 10 years, he has a $37.5 million job. He's going to make over $250 million in order to be an analyst for football. Now, that is really not the juxt of all of this. Congratulations to Tom Brady. Get your money. And I think he should get his money. I think he should get everything that he wants. The same way that I believe that everybody should get everything that they want. The backlash is coming from people in the space who believe that, wow, he just got that type of money, but others have not. So, and I want to make sure that I have this right, because I want to make sure I have this right, because I think it's important to make sure that we are paying proper attribution to what was said by the person. Jalen Rose had issue with what was said about Tom Brady getting that type of money. And I think that the crux of what people are using as the argument is that somebody like Jalen Rose, who's been in sports media now for upwards of 20 years, right? As someone who's been in sports media for upwards of 20 years, Jalen Rose is not even close to making that type of money. And people say that it was unfair that Tom Brady is making this money and Jalen Rose is not making this money. And okay, if I want to agree that it's unfair that Tom Brady is making this money and Jalen Rose is not making this money, I can get down with that. The problem is, when has life ever been fair? When have we ever looked at life and said, yo, yeah, this should be fair? I don't know about you guys and what you've dealt with in your life, but in my life, nothing has ever been fair. Nothing. Especially when you add to the fact that I'm a black man. So I'd like to outline for you or lay down for you 3 reasons why you should not be surprised that Tom Brady was able to get this money and you have not seen anyone else, Jalen Rose included, able to get this money. Number 1, I'll just get it out the way right now. Jalen Rose is black. So if you look at the demographic of the sports consumer, Tom Brady, as the clean-cut, all-American white boy with the supermodel wife and the seemingly perfect life, is going to be a better sell to that marketplace than Jalen Rose, who has, for lack of a better way of saying it, been one of the forefronts cultural leaders of the hip hop movement. Now, we know that there are billions of dollars in hip hop, but it is still a niche. It is still a particular genre. And so the amount of people that Jalen Rose is going to appeal to is not the same amount of people that Tom Brady is going to appeal to. And he's black. And in this country, when you're black, people say it without saying it all the time. Sometimes they come straight out and say it. You have to work twice as hard to get half as much. You think I'm lying? Okay, watch this. Everybody bangs on Stephen A. Smith. Everybody's on Stephen A. Smith. Oh, he's not worth the money. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. Everybody bangs on Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith makes $10 million a year. He works essentially every single day. He's on multiple shows for multiple hours. He has to grind as a superstar analyst to make $10 million a year. Tony Romo works one game, one time a week. He works one game, one time a week. He makes $20 million. Tony Romo stepped off a field and into a cushy job. Drew Brees stepped off a field and into a cushy job where they were making elite levels of money. Guess who neither one of those guys are? Tom Brady. So if the guys who are not Tom Brady can make that elite level money, why should we be surprised that Tom Brady is going to make more when he walks into a space he's never been in before? Makes sense, right? He is, by all intents and purposes, the quintessential white boy, right? We know how this thing works. So that's reason number 1. Reason number 2 has absolutely nothing to do with race. Tom Brady is considered the GOAT. Jalen Rose, for as good as he is, Not considered the GOAT. Nowhere near the GOAT. In fact, I could argue you, right? Popularity at Michigan, Jalen Rose, Tom Brady. When they were in college, Jalen Rose, Tom Brady. Make no mistake about it, Jalen Rose was a superstar in college. Jalen Rose was a star for a small amount of time in the NBA. But he was never a superstar. And he certainly was not the GOAT. You want to know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see how much money LeBron James makes if he decided to step off the court and into an analyst chair. Would TNT give LeBron James $35-40 million a year? Would ESPN give LeBron James $35-40 million a year? Because that would be the true test, right? That would be the true test. Will they give him $35-40 million a year to work one time a week? And even then, ladies and gentlemen, it wouldn't be equal because basketball season has way more games. So he would probably be asked to work way more. But if we want to keep it equal, LeBron James on one broadcast per week, does he get $35-40 million? So, yeah, Tom Brady is going to get more money than everybody else has ever received to step away from the game and go into the booth because he's the GOAT. If you're the greatest of all time, you can call your shot. Tom Brady doesn't need to get out of bed for $5 million a year. Tom Brady makes 20 plus right now. So you knew he wasn't going to transition into something else where he wasn't making that money because his superstar model wife makes money like it's going out of style. And he makes money like it's going out of style. And he's only going to make more. You think this is the only thing he's got set up for when he walks away from the game? Come on. Now, reason number 3 is tricky, right? Because at the end of the day, it is not what you're worth. It is what you can negotiate. So in business, they say a few things. I don't pertain to know all of the tricks of business. But they tell you it's not what you're worth, it's what you can negotiate. They tell you that timing is everything. They also tell you that you should always negotiate from a position of power. Jalen Rose, I respect the hustle because Jalen Rose, in my opinion, did it the right way in this journalism thing, in this analyst thing, because he's not a journalist, he's an analyst. He worked his way up, started off small, doing little things, continued to work up, found his voice, found his niche, built his brand unapologetically, did it his way, didn't have to change who he was, doesn't have to do a lot of the cooning and buffooning that they asked a lot of the black men on television to do. He's authentically him. And that should be applauded. No cap. That should be applauded. But when Jalen Rose first got started was a time where the analyst wasn't the star. The anchor was still the star. And now the anchor is like the point guard. But they're usually not the stars anymore. Now the anchors are just there to set up the stars. The best superstar anchor in the business is Ernie Johnson. And sometimes when we're watching inside the NBA, we barely hear from him. He gives us the lead in, He throws the ball to Chuck, who shares it with Kenny, who shares it with Shaq. And they move. And every once in a while, they got to get it back under control. And Ernie comes in, give me that. Hey, set it up, triangle. But make no mistake about it. Inside the NBA is inside the NBA because of Charles and Kenny and Shaq. If for some reason Ernie Johnson had to go away and they brought somebody else in, we're still tuning in to see what see what Charles is going to say, to see what Kenny's going to say, to see what Shaq's going to do. So when Jalen Rose came in, it was a different time. Now we are in the age of the analyst, the superstar analyst. And so because of that, when Jalen Rose came into the business, he was not negotiating from a position of power. And therefore, he had to get in where he fit in. And see reason number one. Tom Brady is coming into a space where the analyst is the star. And that analyst is the star, which means that as a star, I get to shoot my own shot. I get to call my shot. I get to say my number. And you can take it or you can leave it because I'm negotiating from a position of power. You people don't really believe that Fox Sports was the only entity ready to give this man a boatload of money. You don't think ESPN was lining up to get Tom Brady? You don't think ABC, CBS, you don't think these places were lining up to get Tom Brady? Come on, people. He signed with Fox Sports because Fox Sports dropped the bag, the biggest bag. And if you want someone like that, you're going to have to drop the biggest bag. So Tom Brady was always negotiating from the position of power. See, these places, they failed the first time because they had the former GOAT and Peyton Manning. And people didn't want to give him the keys. So he said, I'll just do my own thing. And they missed the opportunity to get Peyton Manning talking football on a weekly basis. Well, Tom Brady comes around. What do? You up the ante. You make sure you don't miss him. That's where we're at. Tom Brady negotiated from a position of power. Jalen Rose never had that opportunity. It was different times when they came in. And now, Jalen Rose knows the business. He's on the inside of the business. He knows what's going on. This isn't shocking or surprising to Jalen Rose. I don't care what he says. There's no shock and awe that Tom Brady got bread at that level and he didn't get bread at that level. And you people are yelling and screaming at Stephen A. Smith about, oh, he doesn't deserve this type of money. Meanwhile, applauding Tom Brady, even though Stephen A. Smith has been a journalist that has worked his way up from the bottom for years and years and years just to get to $10 million a year, only to see Tony Romo's get $20 million and work one day a week. We have to start putting these things into perspective. And we have to start calling a spade a spade. We know that something like this is going to happen because this is the world that we live in. This is the society that we rock with. Guys who look like Tom Brady and play like Tom Brady has played and win like Tom Brady has won and move off the field like Tom Brady has moved are going to be rewarded. And if you look, and if one of those things are not the case for you, it might be different. But Tom Brady's the perfect storm. Rarely do you get the good-looking, white, successful GOAT of his sport who happens to be a really good conversationalist and is ready to move into the space. Rarely do you get all of those together. So of course Tom Brady got that money. And of course they're never going to pay Jalen Rose 35 or $37.5 million a year. Why? Because they're going to call this bluff. If Jalen Rose was to say, hey, I want $37 million a year, they're going to say, okay, go find somebody else that's going to be willing to pay you $37 million. Oh, no? Okay, well, take this $3 million. Take this $5 million. Take this $1.2 million. Oh, you don't want to do that? Go find somebody else willing to give you $1.2 million. See? You negotiate not what you're worth. It's not about what you're worth. It's about how much you can negotiate. And Tom Brady negotiated from the position of power, and he was rewarded for it. The one person we should not be mad at is Tom Brady. He didn't make these rules. He didn't put this society in place. He's merely taking advantage of the situation. And he should. If the roles were reversed, people would be taking advantage of the situation. They wouldn't go, no, I'm not going to do that because that's not right. No. We get what we negotiate. And he negotiated well. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. We do this thing a few times a week. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree. But whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. And if you're joining me on the YouTube channel, make sure that you like, make sure you subscribe. Also, check out that A Giant Issue drops every Monday at 6 p.m. on the YouTube channel exclusively. Until next time, peace.